The agenda this week considered the return of history, examine the inconsistency of memory, probe the potential of new treatments for cerebral palsy, and check the vital signs of communities around the province. Up first, the Week in Review begins with a debate on the future of Ontario's Green Energy Act.
Now, we paid a bit of a price for being ahead of the curve, and that made the government unpopular because it was expensive to do, far more expensive than the politicians told the public.
I think the critics would say it's more than a bit of a price.
Right,
they
exactly.
Would say it was a humongous price.
Significant. And that's one of the major reasons for the increase in electricity bills today. I've disagreed with a lot of the things that were said here, but one of the things that Steve said that I do agree with is that there is a public misconception I want to just throw out here, that getting rid of coal was a swap for renewables, and in particular wind and solar. It wasn't, because those are intermittent sources and they require gas-fired power plants as a backup. So it wasn't a complete trade-off. It was more raising nuclear and bringing in more gas turbines to offset wind whenever the wind wasn't blowing. Because the big problem with green is the wind doesn't blow when you want it to blow in Ontario. It blows a lot of the time at the wrong time, when we're not at peak power, at nighttime, in the summer and so on, in the winter, when we don't need the power as much for air conditioning and so on.
Gordon, let me get your take on whether or not you think the government is entitled to take a lion's share of the credit for the fact that we have no smog days left anymore and that fewer kids are getting asthma.
Well, the issue is not the smog days. The issue is the CO2 reduction. It's the singular greatest reduction of greenhouse gases in North America of any jurisdiction. That's the big claim to fame, and it's quite legitimate. And other jurisdictions right across North America and around the world are getting rid of coal themselves now. The government was clearly ahead of itself and the General Times, and it was a huge step forward. And in fact, the biggest problem is that Ontario did it early, and there's some question of whether we get credit for that in future greenhouse gas reductions, discussions internationally. So it was a tremendous thing to do, and it did accomplish a lot. And that's just, all this other stuff is nonsense. So, I mean, yes, it's particulate wasn't a big issue in particular, but diesel trucks are. So they are a big thing. So let's get rid of diesel trucks. What's the point here? Getting rid of coal was the right thing to do. We did it. It was successful, and we're the envy of North America for doing it.
Did we pay too much to make it happen?
Well, listen, the price is just beginning. Ontario Power Generation has applied for cost increases on nuclear of 11% per year each year for the next 10 years. There's your cost. There's your cost going up. This business that nuclear is so cheap and so coal was, getting rid of coal was a foolish thing to do. We're about to pay the piper and for these refurbs and the extension of Pickering for, well, how many years further they're going to extend it, I don't know. So these cost comparisons you're looking at old costs versus future costs, and I'll tell you, nuclear is going to cost us a lot in the next 10 years.
Steve, I don't want to get too far off the path here, but the fact is, the Ontario Energy Board has been asked by Ontario Power Generation for 11% per year for a good long chunk into the future in order to pay for the $12.5 billion nuclear refurb that's coming down the pipe. Is it fair to say, as Gordon suggests, that by the time this all shakes itself out, wind is going to be a heck of a lot cheaper and nuclear is going to be a heck of a lot more expensive?
No, it's not fair to say that. And we have to look at what the prices are costing now. The cost of OPG nuclear is 6 cents, around 6 cents per kilowatt hour. Bring that up by 11% per year, you don't get to where wind is right now, which is like 12%, which is 12 cents a kilowatt hour. And you don't get anywhere close to solar, which is 50 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look at the amount of solar generation in August 2016 and multiply that by 50 cents, this is why we've got astronomical charges for our electricity. Upping nuclear by 11% when you're starting from a low figure is still going to get you to a low figure. Yes, they are price increases, but you're getting low-cost power at the end of it, and power that comes with absolutely no greenhouse gases, unlike wind and solar, which, as Martin said, have to be paired with natural gas.
Steve, I got to ask you a follow-up here.
And natural gas is a carbon-heavy fossil fuel. Remind everybody.
Gordon is pulling what little hair he has left out of his head right now, just waiting to get in here. But hang on a sec, Gordon. Hang on, because I do want to do a follow-up. Steve, if we're only doing 9% of our electricity grid on solar, wind, and bioenergy, how is it that that small fraction of 9% could possibly be responsible for the massive increases in electricity bills all over the province?
I'll turn the question around. My last electricity bill, the electricity charge was around 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Nuclear goes for between 6 and 7 cents per kilowatt hour, and nuclear makes 60 to 70% of it. Hydro goes for 5 cents per kilowatt hour. It makes another 20 to 25%. 80% of our supply is with sources that cost us no more than 7 cents per kilowatt hour. How is it that the electricity portion of my electricity bill is 12 cents when the vast majority of the power is made by sources that are costing us less than 7 cents? Answer that question. That is because this little sliver of power that is produced by wind and solar is extremely expensive. This is just arithmetic. If you multiply a small number by a large cost number, if solar is producing 4% of our power, but it is accounting for 40 to 50% during most days of the electricity cost, that is what is driving costs up. This is just arithmetic.
Okay, let me get Gord back in on the Gord. You take on the math. Go ahead.
Well, the math just doesn't work. First of all, wind is 13.3%, 13.3 cents per kilowatt hour, according to the OEB, and gas is 14. That's the current figures from Ontario. But we're talking about the future cost of nuclear, which at 11% per year for 10 years goes up to 16 cents. But what's happening in the future cost? What is the future cost of wind? The wind is now bidding in international auctions around 4 cents per kilowatt hour American. So the trend line for wind and solar is plummeting.
I want to start with the title because the return of history suggests that history went off somewhere and hid and is now coming back. And if that's the case, where's it been?
Well, it's really a rip off of the idea of the end of history, which was Francis Fukuyama's prediction at the end of the Cold War, that history would, at least as he defined history, would be transcended. We'd moved past it. And so the return of history suggests that maybe not quite, and that it has come back in a variety of forms.
For those who don't remember the Fukuyama essay, which I think had a question mark at the end of it.
It did.
Shall we remind them? Here we go. Sheldon, if you would, roll the clip, please.
For the previous 150 years, most progressive intellectuals believed that there is this thing called history. That is to say, a progressive evolution of human societies. And the Marxist ones believed that there was an end of history which would be some form of a communist utopia. And my simple observation back in the winter of 88, 89 was it didn't look like we were going to get there. And in fact, given the trends going on in the Soviet Union and China and other places, it looked like history would terminate or evolve not into communism, but the penultimate stage, which would be some version of liberal democracy and a market economy. And I continue to believe that that argument is fundamentally right. I actually believe that there is such a thing as history in this Marxist Hegelian sense. We don't use that word anymore. We use terms like modernization or development, as in the U.S. Agency for International Development. But it basically means the same thing. It means that human societies have gone through a coherent process of transition from one type of political and social and economic organization to another. And the question is, where is that process headed?
Do you think there is a problem with Professor Fukuyama's claim that liberal democracies is where it's at?
I do, in two senses. One is that we've seen over the last 5 to 8 years a democratic recession, a decline in the number and the quality of democracies, and the erosion of liberal democratic values. So rather than the march forward, we've seen a regression. And secondly, the international dimension of his prognosis, that with the development of a liberal democracy, we would see more peace, more cooperation. Again, we've seen bumps on the road. And I guess it's a question of perspective, because he would argue, well, in the long run, I'll still be right. And then, of course, you can't expect things to happen overnight. But what I want to suggest in the book is that it's more than bumps in the road. And part of the reason for that is the crisis in liberal democracy itself.
Well, in the long run, we're all dead, as somebody once famously said. But in the short run, how do you know he's not right? I mean, it is fair to say that with all of the cataclysmic change over the past quarter century, you've got to expect a few bumps in the road somewhere, but in the long arc of history, he will be proved to be correct. Why is that not for sure?
Well, I can't I can't say for sure that he's wrong. But I do question the idea that the liberal democratic model will necessarily be replicated in the same way and will result in the kind of peaceful relations that he predicts. I also think that the triad of qualities that he talks about as being at the heart of liberal democracy, so democratic government, respect for human rights, and an economic system with modern state oversight, is experiencing some pretty fundamental strain. I do agree with him, and here I show my cards, that I do think liberal democracy is the most admirable form of political system, but I'm much less complacent about its eventual triumph, partly because I think complacency is not good for us.
I'm not sure he'd share your use of the word complacency there. He might say confidence.
Yes, overconfidence, however we might play it, because I think then, and what we've seen, is an overconfidence in the ability of our system to weather these crises.
Well, you go even further than that. I think if I've got the quote right here, you say, I'm more of a Chicken Little when it comes to liberal democracy's future. Chicken Little, of course, famously saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. So what does a falling sky look like in your eyes?
Well, I think a lot of my perspective is driven by the fact that I have spent the last 3 to 5 years of my life focused on those areas of the world where there is conflict, where there is underdevelopment, and conflict of a particularly brutal kind. So if you look at the world in this kind of macro picture and you say most of us are at peace, and even Steven Pinker, the cognitive scientist, would say, well, but the places where there isn't peace are very brutal indeed. And I think that's what has given me my Chicken Little perspective. But the second dimension, and I think this is important, is that I'm very worried about the trends in liberal democracy itself. And looking back, as the book does at the beginning, at liberal democracy's trajectory from the late 1800s onwards, shows you that its progress was very uneven. It reversed. It was not inevitable that we had liberal democracies.
Okay, but I appreciate your concern about it, but almost every immigrant and or refugee in the world would give their eye teeth to move to a democracy today if they could. That does tell you something, doesn't it?
Yes, about its attractiveness as a political ideal, absolutely. And that's why I say in the book, that's the interesting position we find ourselves in. There is, unlike during the Cold War, and here Fukuyama is partly right, no viable universal alternative. And I think it impresses upon us the need to do more to reform, improve, and really shore up our liberal democracies.
I've often wondered, Ted Williams hit 521 home runs for the Red Sox in his life. David Ortiz batted .688 in the 2013 World Series. Reggie Jackson batted .450 in the '78 World Series. Babe Ruth hit 714 home runs. There are numbers and stuff that is in my head forever, and I'm, unless something bad happens. I could not tell you the last 5 movies I saw or the titles of the last 5 books I read. They're gone. I can't remember them. Why?
Because you either didn't pay attention to them. So often when we read books or watch movies, we're just going with it. So it's almost a bit of a passive process. And you probably can tell me the gist of what happened.
I can tell you stuff in the movies.
Exactly.
And I can certainly tell you stuff in the books.
Exactly.
I read them.
So that's called gist memory. And that's different from something called verbatim memory, where you remember the exact, so a quote.
But I have verbatim memory. I have verbatim memory on sports stats.
Right. But what I'm saying is that you don't need to have both. So there's separate processes that are actually stored separately in the brain. And so you can have one or the other, or you can, best case scenario, have both of them.
That's what I got to work on. Best case scenario.
Best case scenario.
Dr. Shaw, let's turn to the future. A biomedical engineer at the University of Southern California is testing a memory-boosting implant. What could this do?
So the implant is sometimes referred to as a hippocampal implant because it's put into what's called the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain that's responsible for turning short-term memories, which are really short-term. So I talk about this in the book as well, that sort of super short-term memories. So short-term memories are often also referred to as working memories, and they're about 30 seconds. So pretty much everything else needs to be converted into a long-term memory, needs to be passed through the hippocampus and put somewhere longer. Somewhere more permanent, essentially. And for the hippocampal implants, what they're trying to do is to improve that process of setting things into long-term memory. Now, at this point, research has only been done in animals, and there is some promise that maybe these prosthetic memory aids might help with that process of turning short-term memories into long-term memories. But that's particularly the case, or the intended case is for diseased brains. So when you're missing pieces of the hippocampus, or your hippocampus is malfunctioning, then maybe you could recover some of that function by putting in a chip or a synthetic, well, brain piece.
Something. They've done it to animals and apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because this is from I think probably a lot of people have seen this. This is 1990, Total Recall with the former governor. Plays a construction worker in the year 2084, dreams of visiting colonized Mars. And we're going to show a clip where he goes to a company that plants false memories into people's brains so he can experience the thrill of having gone to Mars, even though he's never gone to Mars. Sheldon, let's roll it.
Mars it is. Now let me see. The basic Mars package will run you 899 credits. Now that's for 2 full weeks of memories, complete in every detail. If you want a longer trip, that'll cost you a little more because it's a deeper implant.
What's in the 2-week package?
Well, first of all, Doug, let me tell you, when you go recall, you get nothing but first-class memories. Private cabin on the shuttle, deluxe suite at the Hilton, plus all the major sites, Mount Pyramid, the Grand Canals, and of course, Venusville.
Yeah, but how real does it seem?
As real as any memory in your head.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
No, I'm telling you, Doug, your brain will not know the difference. And that's guaranteed, or your money back.
How likely is that future?
It's not totally wrong. I mean, that's essentially what I do in my research. So I implant complex false memories where you think entire experiences happened that didn't. And so do other scientists. There are a few of us doing this kind of complex autobiographical false memory research. So it's possible that we will be able to, and we can already, implant false memories of events. Whether or not we can implant 2 weeks or extended periods of time or an entire childhood, maybe, not impossible.
I don't hear you saying this is crazy.
Unlikely. It's not totally crazy. It's not totally crazy. It's just a bit more dramatic than, and longer and bigger than we typically can do.
Let's not say 2 weeks on Mars. Let's say I've never read your book, but you're going to. Could you implant the memory of that book in my head somewhere?
Yes.
You can do that?
Yes, definitely.
You can do that right now?
Remember that time? Yeah, so again, something we do all the time when it's suggested to us, remember when you were with me at, or remember that time we did that thing, or I'm sure you've read this thing or seen this thing, and you've heard so much about something that you start to go, oh, actually, maybe I
did read that.
Exactly. And then the next time you recall it, or someone brings up the book, you go, oh yeah, I read that, because you know the gist, you know the general things that it's about, and you can sort of contribute to the conversation.
That's a bit scary, actually.
Yeah, but
That we're
again,
that susceptible to this kind of thing.
we're all susceptible to this, yeah.
What percentage of people can't remember their spouse's cell phone number?
This day and age, probably most, because they're stored in our phones, so we don't have to. So memory is also, our brains, just like our bodies, are generally optimized. So you use as little energy as possible to do as much as possible. And if your brain doesn't have to remember something, if it doesn't have to store a phone number, it's not going to. And so your cell phone or your computer or even something you write down a number in is going to act as sort of an external brain. And your brain goes, oh, don't need that, can focus on other things and dedicate my energy elsewhere.
Cerebral palsy is caused by damage to a growing young brain, and it can be caused by disease or trauma or prematurity. This young lady actually had birth asphyxia, a shortage of oxygen at the time she was born. So you can see she walks very slowly and very unsteadily. She actually needs some help going along.
So it's not something you're born with, something has to happen to you and then you get it?
Some people are born with it in the sense that their brain is not developed normally in the uterus, but about 50% have some sort of perinatal problem around the time of birth. They're either born early or they're born with complications in a full-term pregnancy.
And how did you discover that this was going to be your mission in life?
Well, I was a neonatologist, so I was actually at the hospital for sick children taking care of babies in newborn intensive cares. And so all of the kiddies that were sick would come to us, particularly way back in the 70s when there weren't all the perinatal regional units. And I turned out to be the brain doc because I had done neuropsychology before I went into medicine, and I just like brains.
You just like brains.
I did.
Good.
And fortunately, all my colleagues liked lungs or nutrition or something else. So
Wasn't much competition.
I got to see all the ones with brains.
Gotcha. Let's do an excerpt from your book here in which you write, unlike the traditionalists, I think that much of the spasticity in cerebral palsy is a habit, a brain and body habit. As a habit, it can be replaced just as a wonky tennis serve or an errant golf swing can be changed. Let's get into this because this is pioneering work here. I want to have you tell us about somebody named Daniel, who's a boy, inspired the title of the book, and how he illustrates this concept of cerebral palsy being a habit.
Okay. Well, when I was a neonatologist, I was the brain expert, and I did ultrasound brain scans, so you could actually look at the baby's brains. And Daniel had a big bleed in the right side of his brain as a newborn. And I thought, and was actually quite sure, that that would lead to a left hemiplegia, unlike the girl that you just saw.
Sorry, hemiplegia being?
I'm just going to say.
Okay.
It's a type of cerebral palsy that involves just one arm and leg, very much like an adult stroke. Really, they walk the same way. It's indistinguishable. So we started him in early treatment, and when he was about 3 or 4 years old, I discharged him from the follow-up clinic. And then 3 years later, I got a phone call from his mother. And she said, Daniel's playing soccer. And like a typical doctor at that time, I was young, I sort of rolled my eyeballs and said, sure he is. I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking, over enthusiastic mother, kids with cerebral palsy do not play soccer.
Right.
So she picked that up in my tone of voice and attacked me. My parents and families get along with me pretty well. And said, no, he got in on the 4th tryout. And I said, okay, come and see me, because it just didn't make sense. So the hospital was going through one of its endless renovations. So I was in an old ward in my clinic, and I had an empty hallway. So I said, okay, Daniel, walk up and down. Because I wanted to prove to myself that he still had hemiplegia. So there he goes with a little limping gait, hand up like this, not moving, the other arm doing fine. And so I say, now run. And he took off like a bat out of hell. He just took off. And right at the end of the hallway, he did a perfect pivot turn on his right leg. And I said, well, that doesn't bother me. That's his good leg. But then he came and he did the exact same thing right in front of me. And guess what I said? I said out loud, to my endless embarrassment, you can't do that.
But apparently he can.
He did. I made him do it 3 or 4 times. Poor little kid was absolutely exhausted. But it stuck with me that this one pushy mom who really put her son through everything and got him involved in sports, and yet if you can run normally, and he was running normally, then your brain's normal because you walk and run with the same parts of the brain. So I knew about brains, and it just bugged me. And I have to say, it took me years to finally step back, because everybody said this is permanent, irreversible, and it gets worse as they get older. And yet he got better as he got older.
So how do you explain the fact that he could run, but he couldn't walk?
Well, you see, I think he learned to walk when his brain was damaged and when it was immature. He learned to run when his brain had recovered, and in this case, it had recovered completely because he was a competitive soccer player, and it was recovered, but was also more mature. But kids don't know the difference. So once I understood that it was a habit, I could find these children everywhere. I mean, they played.
Sorry, once you understood that the impaired walking was a habit.
And I started looking for their highest level of skill, then they're everywhere.
Norman Doidge, who's been on this program numerous times, and I know you know, wrote the book, The Brain That Changes Itself. And he says that you are, quote, rightly demanding that colleagues integrate the new science of brain plasticity into the treatment of children with CP. Why do you think there has been resistance to this approach in the past?
Well, it's not surprising. Change is difficult for everybody, and we know about it, but we tend to think the doctors aren't resistant to change, and that's just not true. And Norman was absolutely, he changed the world for adults with stroke and adults with MS and Parkinson's disease with his first book, The Brain That Changes Itself. Because before that, neuroplasticity was known to neuroscientists, and it's been known to neuropsychologists since the 1940s. But in medical school, I was taught that human brains don't get better. And an awful lot of people my age who are now in control of medicine were taught the same thing. So it's the resistance to change, and it's silos of knowledge. So if I say baby brains can recover, I get arguments in my own field. But if I talk to pediatric neurosurgeons, they say, of course they do.
I would assume it's way more affordable to live in Windsor than it is in Toronto, right?
Absolutely.
You can buy a house there for what's the average price?
Oh, probably about 150 or 170.
No kidding.
Yes.
So housing is not an issue in Windsor in the way it is here, not at all.
We've had a good couple of years in that the prices have taken off a little bit, but compared to other communities across Ontario and Canada, it's very affordable to live in Windsor. Our issue is around specialized housing, housing for people with specialized needs, for seniors, assisted housing. And that's something that came out of our vital signs, looking for specific housing for people who have some extra needs or mental health or other issues.
Brian, what role in Sudbury does philanthropy play in trying to increase the affordable housing stock in the city?
There has been some, and I have had some personal involvement with some philanthropy related to affordable housing. Although I think, like many communities, we would probably find that more philanthropy is focused perhaps in the healthcare sector or in the educational sector. What we're seeing in Sudbury, though, is our proportion of individuals who are over 65 is a little bit higher than across the country or across the province. And conversely, our youth population maybe is a little less, but we spoke to that earlier. But we certainly expect that trend to continue for at least another 12 to 15 years. So the capacity for not only housing, but for care services within that housing is going to increase. Our vacancy levels in terms of housing for seniors, or at least affordable housing for seniors, is quite low. So we certainly do need to do some work on capacity, and philanthropy definitely has to be part of it. Government does play its role and tries to, and certainly the private sector does also. But in terms of ensuring the affordability side, I think philanthropy has to play a little bit of a bigger role than it has in the past.
John, how about in Peterborough, the role of philanthropy in affordable housing?
Well, a remarkable story to tell you, Steve. Just this month and next, 42 families are moving into new apartments in what was formerly the Mother House of the Sisters of St. Joseph, a historic property in Peterborough. The Peterborough Poverty Reduction Network looked at the stubborn 1,500 households that have been on the list waiting for housing in Peterborough now for 10 years. And that yardstick is not moving.
Those 42 families, they're
local?
So
these are local families now who are moving into a range of apartments, everything from rent assistance to full market rates. But it was a project that was the property purchased by the Poverty Reduction Network, now a charity called the Mount Community Center. The first phase of all that construction and renovation wasn't eligible for commercial financing. So a very creative social finance program put together, a community bond issue, $2 million. The Community Foundation was the second largest bondholder in that. Now with tenants moving in, they've been able to secure commercial finance, and the community can look at other opportunities.
Gotcha. Just so I'm clear, these weren't sort of new Syrian refugee families. These were families who've been on waiting lists for a long time.
On waiting lists for homes in Peterborough.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Sharon, I want to share with you, this was, the guy who's producing this segment, Colin Ellis, was live tweeting from the Toronto Vital Signs luncheon last week, and somebody tweeted this to him when they realized he was there. The tweet said, "Housing is permanent, philanthropy is limited and possibly biased by the donor." That was Neil Vandenberg's view. Any truth to that?
Well, I think if you allow it to be true, you can allow it to be true. I think that my philosophy is you bring donors into a challenge to move things forward more quickly. I think we are in a very unique time in this province where many of our mayors and our premier and our prime minister are actually sitting at tables together, having big, meaty conversations and actually wanting to work together. And so my theory is, where does philanthropy play in affordable housing? It would seem to be a drop in the bucket. But when you hear stories like John's, you realize that they can inspire whole communities to move forward on seemingly intractable problems. So I hear 1,500 on a wait list, and we've got 85,000 on a wait list here in Toronto. And we housed 18% fewer families last year. So how are we going to move that forward? I think John touched on a great example. The community foundations are increasingly using their existing assets. So people don't always know we hold endowment funds. Well, those endowments are invested for good return into the city. Well, one of the things we're starting to do, and Toronto Foundation is doing it as well, is investing in housing. So we made a $1.5 million loan to Habitat for Humanity to get one of their biggest projects off the ground here in Toronto for precisely this reason. If we're not going to step in, who is? And I don't care if they're small amounts of money, if they actually bring to the surface the issues at play and get more philanthropy involved.
This is a bit of an odd question, but given that, Habitat for Humanity is a charity, you're a charitable organization, do you care if they pay you back?
Well, yes, our donors care, but at the end of the day, we should be working together in this community. The community foundations exist to facilitate and foster philanthropy. We're not in competition with anybody, which is what makes it a great union with us and Habitat, or us and any other organization that wants to move issues like poverty and affordable housing forward.
Brian, let me do a little follow-up with you on that tweet that came in and get your sense about whether or not when a corporation gives money, for example, to the Sudbury Community Foundation, whether they think that that donation comes with strings attached that you need to respect. What's the situation there?
I think it sort of starts with educating of the donor, whether it's a corporate donor or an individual or an organization, a service club, that if the case is properly made, in this particular case for affordable housing, so individuals on relatively low incomes, for example, can afford a reasonable quality of life, and as I mentioned before, with a certain level for care. In my experience, whether it's been through the Sudbury Community Foundation or with other organizations that I've been connected to, that the response has been quite good and quite positive. We need to do more of it to explain that this is the situation that individuals, for example, cannot, in the case of seniors, and that's what I'm focusing on, are not necessarily able to maintain themselves in their own home. In some cases, that's not necessarily financial, although sometimes it is financial, but also simply being able to cope with the demands of home ownership in terms of maintenance and things of that nature. So when that case is made, my experience has been rather heartening that there has been an understanding that these are philanthropic dollars well spent.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review. You can see all of those programs in their entirety on our website, tvo.org, on our iTunes channel, and on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit tvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.